This is why I don't use the word student in my business. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about giving yourself the gift of process. I want to focus your attention on Dream 100. I want to focus your attention on the client acquisition process and how that should be a process, not a hack that you discover, not some methodology that you learn or some philosophy that you learn, but yet a process that lives and breathes inside your company. Here's what Elon, you just saw Elon. Here's what Elon taught me one day in conversation. Because I was ranting and raving, and she said, Alze, and she said the following to me. She said, Alze, school teaches us to learn and then do. And that is, and you're offering us a different construct, Alze. And so she was reflecting that back. So here's what school teaches. And I can do this quickly. School essentially says, learn everything you can up front. Understand everything you can up front. There are two breakdowns there. One is that you can understand everything. You can't. So that's a false statement. Secondly, is that you can understand everything up front. Like before you do something, you should know all of what's involved. You won't, right? So definitely not up front. So that's a broken idea. Yet school kind of teaches with that perspective. Hang with me here because I'm trying to be helpful. What also happens to us, what I've noticed in our behavior when I serve experts like yourself, is that learning, staying in the learning phase, is safe. There's no risk of failure, right? I get to sit at my desk, sit at my computer, look at my phone, read some books, right? No one threatens me because I get to live in my head and live it in my safe space. And what's also a mirage that plays here is that this feels productive. Learning stimulates the brain, so something has happened, right? Because you've been intellectually stimulated, so it feels productive. Okay, so what happens in this model, again, it's kind of how we're taught in school. You learn everything, and then you take a test. So when you take that test is a match to what you've learned. You learn things in an exact way, and now you take the test that matches exactly how you learned. And so as you try to run your business, you operate similarly, right? You watch the YouTube videos, you read the blog posts, you download all the free stuff, right? And you figure that life will play out exactly how that template said. And so when it doesn't, panic, because it won't. Panic. So there is an inappropriate expectation of perfection that happens here. Because I learned it should play out exactly, pristinely as I learned it. And that's just not how life plays out. And so, therefore, doing feels like a risky behavior, right? To do it is to risk. I learned all this stuff. Now I'm going to try it out, see what happens, roll the die. That's kind of how we think. That's risky. And internally, we process that as a success or failure kind of idea. If it worked exactly how I thought it would, I succeeded. If it worked out different than how I thought, then I failed. Maybe this works well in school. We can argue that later. Maybe this works well in school, but this thinking does not work well in our business. And that's why so much of the content you get from me is structured fundamentally differently. I'm asking you in this environment to do first and then learn from what you've done. This is what your business requires. Let me break that down very, very cleanly here. So when I talk about do, I don't mean just do things haphazardly, guess your way through stuff. That's horrendous. What I'm talking about is execute a process. When I recommend that you do something, it's always linear, methodical, in an order. There's always a framework to follow. There's a process. So as we think about client acquisition, it's a process. I don't just say master email or master LinkedIn or whatever. It's always a conversation of the process you should be following. So do a process. In that process, you should be curious and seek confirmation. So here's how I think it should work. Is that right? How did it play out? Let's see. What did it do? Right? Get curious and seek confirmation. The process helps us identify what's good or what's bad. Right? So seeking the spirit of confirmation by having a process, doing a thing over and over and over and over again, you get to create movement and therefore momentum. Now you feel like something has happened because something is happening. It's no longer guesswork or just intellectual pontificating. Now it's a thing that you can count and measure. So now here's what happens. If you do the process and respect it accordingly, what you get from the process, what you learn from the process is refinement. You get better, you get smarter, you get faster quickly. We just saw it play out multiple times here. People, from what they said last week to what they're saying this week, is remarkably different because they are executing a process. Refinement is what you're offered. That's what you get to learn to do, is refine. What you find, what you learn from following a process first is the spirit of safety. Now you know what safe looks like and what it doesn't look like because you did something. So that felt good. I'll do more of that. That didn't feel so good. I'll do less of that. Okay, so that did more. That was safe. I follow that. I can get my head around that. That didn't feel safe. I won't do that anymore. But these are controlled experiments. Process, right? Identifiable boundaries, right? Controlled experiment. So you get to maintain your safety inside the process. Okay, cool. Last thing you learn here is speed. So if you're doing something, if you're doing a process, you get movement, you get momentum, then you learn how to do it literally faster the next time. You do it better, faster, smarter the next time. So then you feel the speed, like you actually feel more productive. Next Monday is better than this Monday. Next month is better than this month. Next year is better than this year. This is something that in my brain, this way of functioning, kind of do versus learn, is intuitive for me. It's intuitive now, admittedly, because I had to get beat up. Life had to beat me up before I could appreciate this. But now I understand it very, very loudly that this is how we have to function. Because in our business, if we just try to learn ourselves, get all stymied up or get all filled up full of information, then we sneak out there and we try something. We've missed so many of the required iterations needed to survive the difference in our expectations. Okay. Cool beans. If you got a comment, you got a response, want to talk back to me. If I'm off target, you'll tell me. I'm closing down now. This is why I don't use the word student in my business. There are other experts in the field. There's other competitors of mine who call their clients or paying people, they call them students. This is why I don't use the word student in my business. I don't see you as students. I refer to my members in the coaching program as members. I refer to my clients receiving services as clients, because students only learn. And I don't think that's fair to you. I don't think that's fair to your situation. You're trying to grow a business, and that should be our relationship. Are you building? Are you growing? And I don't think student is the right word to capture that idea. So I push back. I don't like hearing that word when others refer to their clients as students. There's a chat that came in here. I've got one last thing here. Here's the picture I see. I realize that in my space as a business coach and the way I choose to behave, I teach things. That's a nature and what it means to be a part of the Coveted Consultant community. I have to acknowledge that. I appreciate that. I do teach things. What I teach is designed to make your movement easier. I don't teach so that you learn. I teach so that you'll do, so that you can do a task, do a thing, etc. When you do something, I assume that you've learned something. When we dialogue, you see that's kind of my energy, right? You did a thing, what happened? What'd he say? What'd they do? How'd it work, right? I assume that because you did something, you learned something. And I'm excited to discuss what you've learned from the action you took, from the framework I offered you. I am thrilled about this part. My spirit, my energy, my cup is filled from this part of the world. But we have much better discussions in response to what you've learned from what you've done. There are many folks who would love to talk to me. They would love to just talk to me, but I don't want to talk like that. I love this too much. So, again, I don't see you as a student. I see you as someone who is executing inside your business. And as you see yourself the same way, you'll do things more assertively. So give yourself the gift of process. Let the process teach you what it's supposed to teach you. Let it show you what it's supposed to show you. Let it walk you up to a sale. Let it walk you up to a new relationship. Let it show you what it's supposed to show you. Give yourself the gift of process.